911 operators. What's the funniest thing you had a kid call in? My mom was a 911 operator. When telling us about her new job, she was describing to my brother and I that she got a job at the place you call 911. Next day mom's at work. My brother calls 911 just to tell mom about his day. A 4-year-old called in to say that his dad took his trick-or-treat candy. Yeah, he took it so the kid wouldn't fill his face in a single night. The dad was planning to ration it out. My kid asked a cop at a festival to arrest me for not letting him have the entire funnel cake. Also it's a fun year. My cousin called because she was giving her lizard a bath and it went down the drain. It was like a tiny house gecko named Steve. She called 911 crying that Steve was drowning and had gone down the drain. By the time the dispatcher figured out Steve was a gecko, the police and fire department were already pulling in. She was like 6 or so and I still tease her about it. One do feel bad for Steve though. My older brother said he called the cops on me for something, so I called them back to say nothing was wrong and that he was lying because I was scared. My dad was pissed. I genuinely hope your dad was pissed at your older brother and not you. It's been 1 hour, Op is confirmed dead. Let's call 911. My dad was the chief of police when I was growing up, and I spent a lot of time at the station. When I was 4 or 5, my mom wouldn't let me do something, so I called the emergency line, pre-9/11 days, and after the XXX police. What is your emergency? Greeting. I very sternly requested that they arrest my mother. The dispatcher recognized the address I was calling from and called my dad to tell him that I was on the emergency line and what I wanted. I got a lecture that night, but from what my dad says, they had a good laugh about it at the station. My uncle is a dispatcher in my hometown. He always tells me this story of this 4-year-old who called 911 because his older brother farted on him. The kid hung up the phone a short time after he explained what happened. My uncle said he was laughing too hard and had to wait a couple extra seconds before calling the number back. The mother answered the phone and he had to explain what happened to her and to make sure everything was alright. The mother was mortified and apologized over and over. My uncle said it was a welcome moment of levity during a stressful holiday work week. How many squad cars did you send? 2. But they arrested the kid who called based on the legal principle of, whoever smelt it dealt it. Young teen just had her first menstrual cycle. First I thought oh sweet, but then, that's some poor kid who'd never been told what to expect and panicked. Sad. When I was a young kid, I was never told that teeth fall out. So, when I lost my first tooth, I reacted about the same way you might if your finger just kind of fell off with a little bit of blood coming from the stump. My kid was 17 months old and impossible to tie down. While I was cooking dinner he went into the study and somehow dialed 000, emergency line in Australia. I think he was trying to talk to his nana, but panicked when a voice came down the line instead. I caught him and hung up the phone, not knowing he'd actually dialed anyone. Then I went back to cooking butter chicken for dinner. 14 minutes later the police are on my doorstep. They came in urgently, looking for an old man who might have fallen down. The emergency line operator had asked several questions, but the only response she had gotten was labored, heavy breathing that she thought was an old man too injured to speak. Luckily for us, it was just sneaky and confused toddler wheezing. We figured it out and I brought my kid out to meet the policeman. One of them said yeah, that'd be the perp. Look at the guilty look on his face. Funnily enough, my kid did have an expression of extreme chagrin. Possibly the first and last time he ever felt guilty for anything. My brother called the police on me because I wouldn't let him watch The Simpsons when we were younger. Told them I was being mean to him. They called my parents back for a very interesting conversation. If it was during the first 10 seasons it was justifiable. When we were younger and home alone, my sister called the police on my brother because they both wanted the same In-N-Out burger. We had 4 identical burgers, but they wanted the same one. The police came to our house and explained to us why we shouldn't call the police for no reason. Our mom came home in the middle of their lecture. She was not happy. My favorite call recently was from an 11-year-old kid who was walking home from school and got lost. He called 999 in a panic, so I told him to stay where he was until officers arrived. We didn't have officers available for about 30 minutes, so we just spent half an hour chatting about Fortnite. I guess not exactly a funny call, but it was enjoyable. Did you pick up any tips? Sadly not. But the kid had the honor of speaking to the self-proclaimed world's worst Fortnite player. My son managed to hit the emergency dialer on my cell phone while I was doing laundry. I heard him happily babbling toddler gibberish before saying, "'K, bye," and handing me the phone. He pretends to talk on it, so I thought nothing of it until I heard, "Hello? Hello?" on the phone. I apologized a lot and removed the option for emergency dialing without actually unlocking the screen. The lovely lady on the other end didn't seem too upset by it. Me. 911. Where is the emergency? Little Mexican kid. Yeah. We need a vegetarian. Me. Long pause. A what? Kid. A vegetarian. Me. Silence as I am processing this. Kid. For my dog, he's sick. Me. Oh. Okay, you need a veterinarian. Sorry buddy, but 911 is for human emergencies. Kid. Oh, okay, bye. Kid had to have been like 10 to 12 years old. I love telling this story at work, so if any of my coworkers see this they will instantly know who it is. But oh well. A couple of years back I got a call from a kid who was about 6 or 7, stating that his brother, who was about the same age, had hit him. This is more of a parental than a police matter, so I politely asked him if I could speak to a parent. No, was his reply. I lowered my voice an octave and said, "Let me talk to your mom or dad." Same reply from the kid. I went into semi-angry, but totally serious adult mode and firmly said, "Put one of your parents on the phone or I'm sending the police to 1234 Main Street." He was calling from a landline, so I had his address. He paused for a moment, and then I could hear him start vomiting in the background of the phone call out of fear. Did wind up sending the police out to chat with the young man, as I was never able to speak to a parent to verify that everything was okay. He received a lecture. He obviously displayed his dominance via vomiting on the floor. Your instructions were as worthy as his broccoli dinner. Not an operator, but my uncle, who is an alcoholic, would show up at our house growing up. Usually not a big deal, but usually had to call the police to take him back to the halfway house. One time this happened while my mom was out, so my brother called 911. When they answered, "Hello 911, what's your emergency?" My brother, who was maybe 10, answered, "Hello, this is not an emergency." I had a little one call into our center about 10 times, just so she could tell us that she loved us and appreciated us, and we are doing such a great job. Our center is pretty big, so she would get a different person almost every time. However, if she got you more than once, she would say something like, No, I already told you. I need to tell someone else. You're great, but they need to know they're great, too. Okay, I love you, bye." It was all from a disconnected cell, and we weren't really getting a great phase on her location, but she stopped after about an hour, so it wasn't super concerning. Made my day. I hope she grows up and keeps that big heart of hers. We need more people like her in the world. They don't necessarily need to call 911, but the point still stands, lol. That sounds like a very huggable person. On a Saturday morning about 7 a.m. I was sleeping in, and my 2-yo called 911 because he wanted breakfast. I didn't know till a sheriff was knocking on the front door doing a welfare check. I would love to have heard that conversation. I would have brought him some breakfast. I had a 6-year-old girl accidentally call 911 saying that her mommy and daddy were making whoopee. I had flashbacks of Family Feud and laughed so hard. I waited a few minutes and called back, and her mom tried to play it off saying they were wrapping Christmas presents. Yeah, sure lady. If your present is a new little brother or sister, wrap it before you tap it. About 10 years ago, my preteen little sister once accidentally called 911 while calling her best friend. Her phone number, minus the area code, started with 9 and 1, and then hung up as soon as she realized her mistake without saying anything to the operator. She didn't tell anyone in the family what she had done, for fear of getting in trouble, and hoped it would just go away. This was seen as suspicious, and a police officer already driving in the area was sent to our house. It just so happens that around that same time, my mom's sister was visiting and she was leaving. The cop arrived just as she pulled out of our driveway. My sister actually saw the cop pass just after she left, and was horrified, but hoped it was just a coincidence and still didn't tell anyone. The cop decided to follow our aunt and pulled her over a block away. The mistake was figured out pretty quickly though, and he let her go without ever coming back to our house. My aunt called the house laughing as soon as she got home. Until this point my parents and me still didn't know she had even been pulled over. My sister was finally exposed, and while she was not punished, she did get teased a lot by mom. Bless her heart. I know that feeling of OMG, I fucked up. If I pretend it never happened, maybe no one else will know. I'm glad your mom just laughed about it. Happened not to me but to someone I know. Kid in question must have been about 3 or 4. Mommy put him down for a nap and went out jogging. Daddy was outside doing yard work. Kid woke up early, looked for mommy around the house but couldn't find her, so he called 911. Kid: I can't find mommy anywhere. Operator: is your daddy around? Kid: yeah, but he's outside, digging a big hole. Cops got there fast and didn't leave until mommy got back from her run. I had a kid ask me if my refrigerator was working. I replied with, "Do you mean is it running?" He cussed at me and then hung up. Fuck you, Clink. Not a 911 operator, but my parents love to bring this story up, so I thought I'd share. One morning when I was about 4, I called 911 to tell them that nobody in the house was dead. They wanted to speak to my parents, and I kept insisting they didn't need to because no one was dead. Eventually I hung up on them and they called back and got to speak to my parents, who were alive as promised. Imagine a little kid telling, nobody is dead, yet. Creepy as hell. I once pocket dialed 911 while playing airsoft. When I got back to my car and was able to look at my phone, I saw I had a 12-minute phone call, and several missed calls from, what I later found out was, the local sheriff's office. Wow, the secretary was not happy. When I finally got to talk to the sheriff, he laughed it off and said it was no biggie, as it was bumfuck nowhere and nothing really ever happened. Still got told to be more careful about having my phone in my pocket and not locking it before putting it away. Yay. Any phone has to have the capabilities of calling 911 even if it isn't in service. My mom found that out when my brother did it with one of her old phones. My buddy's dad was a state trooper. He was home alone when he was like 12, and called 911 and asked them to tell daddy to bring Doritos when he comes home. Did he bring Doritos though? I called 911 when I was about 5 or so just to see if it would work. Naturally, an operator answered almost immediately and caught me off guard. When asked what the emergency was, all I could manage to say was my name before I quickly hung up the phone. They called back and talked to my mom, who wasn't thrilled when they asked if I was okay. I did this exact thing at 4 or 5. Called just to see what would happen. What happened was a cop showed up at my doorstep. BC, unlike you, I got scared and just hung up. I did the same. From a phone booth. But 5-year-old me was witty enough to tell them the name of a kid in kindergarten I had a feud with when they told me they could see where I was calling from and what my name was. They didn't sound very happy with my test call. My dementia client called once to ask for the number for Air Canada. He thought we were stuck in England. We're in Canada. I worked as a 911 operator while I was in college, and one time a young child called in. Sounds like they were maybe 4 or 5 from their speech. And the first thing the child said when I picked up the phone was, "Help, I shit and farted." I could barely contain my laughter as this young child was essentially screaming, "I shit and farted, I need help cause I shit and farted." This is the best response, especially imagining a 4 to 5-year-old saying shit. This kid called in because his parents weren't waking up. He was very scared and sobbing. I was on the phone with him while we dispatched EMT/police, OD, to the residence. I was trying to get him to focus on me when he farted very loudly. It made my day, lol. I called in a fake bomb threat when I was a kid. Deepened my voice and everything. Still feel pretty bad about that. Edit. The full story is that we were at a museum on a field trip. A group of us were messing around by phones, and it came up that you could call 911 from any phone free of charge. So we decided to try it out. I call, the voice asks what your emergency. I panic and say I'm gonna blow this place up and hung up. Spent the rest of the day looking over my shoulder, but no one in authority ever found out. I was a curious and dumb kid, and that is a dangerous combination. We had a kid in class writing something about a bomb on a board in the gym. Full on lockdown, everyone was sent home, and afterwards we all had to give in a writing test for comparison. I can't recall if he got kicked out for that, but it wasn't fun times for him, that's sure. I called the cops on my older brother when I was 6. He wouldn't let me into our room. They called back and told my parents. Those dirty snitches. When I was 4, I called 911 on my parents for forcing me to eat fish for dinner. They promptly called back and my mom answered. Let's just say I never complained about eating fish ever again. No, there's no emergency, but you might want to send some officers over because that's about to change. Not an operator, but when my son was in preschool, they were teaching them to dial 911 in an emergency. How to dial, all that. His best friend, also 4, decided to try it and see if it worked. While mommy was in the shower, he got the phone and dialed it. When the dispatcher came on, he hung up. As is standard on hang-ups, dispatch sent a car and officer to check it out. Bang, bang, bang on the door. Police, open up. Mommy goes to the door with a towel around her, opens the door just a crack, and peeks around it. Tells them everything is okay. Because they can't see her, or anything behind her, they say they have to come in to make sure there's not someone holding a gun or knife on mommy. So they come in and all is good. They explain to the kid how you don't call unless it's an emergency. And you don't hang up. I think my son's friend got a stronger explanation from mommy after the nice officers left. My sister is a 911 operator, and a kid stole her principal's phone to call the police because they thought homework was a crime. Kid ain't wrong though. It is. Just like how taxation is theft. Not stand for this injustice. Gamers rise up. I was on the job when 911 first was implemented in my county on the late 1980s. When I answered 911, "What is your emergency?" Kid said, "My dick is too short," and, of course, he hung up laughing, not realizing that with 911 we knew where he was. 30 minutes later the sergeant had him at the station explaining to me why he used such bad language to such a nice lady. Send a unit out and then blast over the megaphone, "Hey, we heard your dick is too short."